I never thought my own son would sound like a stranger the night I lost everything. The fire had already taken my home. But what he said next, what he didn't say, burned even deeper. It started with a faint crackle. At first, I thought it was the heater acting up again. I remember turning over in bed, half asleep, annoyed. Then came the smell, sharp, bitter, unmistakable. Smoke. Within seconds, my throat tightened. I sat up, coughing, and saw an orange flicker under the bedroom door. I froze. For one terrible heartbeat, I just stared. Then instinct took over. I grabbed my phone, my purse, and ran. The hallway was a tunnel of black smoke. Every breath felt like swallowing fire. I remember the sound, the walls creaking, the windows popping from the heat, the roar that drowned everything else out. I stumbled into the front yard barefoot, clutching my nightgown around me. My neighbor's porch lights flicked on one by one. Someone shouted my name. Another called 911. I turned back and saw my house, the place my husband and I built 30 years ago, collapsing into itself. It looked like the world ending. When the fire truck arrived, I was still standing there, shaking. The firefighters moved fast, shouting codes and orders I didn't understand. One of them guided me to the ambulance, checked my pulse, and asked if I had family nearby. Family. Yes. I had Daniel. My son, my only son. My hands trembled as I dialed his number. It was past midnight, but he answered on the third ring. "Mom? What's wrong?" His voice sounded groggy, impatient. "Daniel," I gasped. "My house, it's gone." It burned down. "Everything's gone." Silence. Just his breath on the other end. I thought maybe the line had dropped. "Daniel?" I whispered. "Can you come, please?" He exhaled sharply, like I'd just asked him for too much. "Mom, Clara and I are sleeping. It's really late. Can't you stay with a neighbor tonight?" His words didn't make sense. I waited for him to say he was joking, that he was on his way. But he didn't. I swallowed hard. "Daniel, I'm standing in the street. I don't have shoes. Please, He cut me off. Okay. I'll call you in the morning, all right? We'll figure something out." The line clicked. He hung up. The firefighter looked at me kindly, but I couldn't speak. I just stared at the phone, at his name glowing on the screen. Daniel. My boy. The one I raised alone after his father died. I ended up spending the night at a shelter the Red Cross set up for fire victims. They gave me a blanket, a cup of tea, and told me I was lucky to be alive. I nodded, but I didn't feel lucky. I felt hollow. The next morning, I walked back to what used to be my home. All that remained was a blackened frame and the smell, so thick it coated my tongue. My wedding photo had melted into the glass. My husband's old watch was nothing but a warped band of metal. As I stood there, my phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. "Sorry, busy morning. We'll talk later. Hope you're okay." Hope I'm okay. I read those words again and again until the letters blurred. By noon, an insurance agent came by. He was polite but distant, asking for policy numbers, photos, receipts, things that had literally gone up in flames. He mentioned temporary housing, but said it might take weeks to process the claim. Weeks. I had nowhere to go. I thought about calling my sister, but we hadn't spoken in years. Pride, mostly. So I packed what little I had, my purse, a borrowed jacket, and took the bus across town. Toward Daniel's house. It was strange walking up his driveway. I'd helped him move into that house. Painted his nursery when he was 5. Watched him grow into a man I thought I knew. Clara opened the door before I could knock twice. Her hair was perfect, her smile thin. "Oh, Margaret," she said. "We weren't expecting you." I explained about the fire. She glanced over her shoulder before saying, "Of course. Come in, for now." For now. Those 2 words felt colder than the night air. Daniel came downstairs, phone in hand. He looked surprised, maybe uncomfortable. He hugged me, quick and distracted, and mumbled, "Hey, Mom, you should have called first." Called first. I stood in their spotless living room, smelling the faint hint of cinnamon and money. Everything my life wasn't anymore. Clara offered tea. Daniel checked his phone. I just need a place for a few days, I said quietly, until I figure things out. He nodded, not meeting my eyes. Sure. But we'll need to talk about it later. Things are a little tight right now. Tight? Daniel worked in finance. Clara ran her own design business. They had 2 cars and a house with more rooms than they used. But apparently they were tight. Something twisted in my chest. Not anger yet, just a kind of stunned ache. When Clara went to answer a call, I noticed a stack of mail on the counter. On top was a letter from Renshaw and Cole, attorneys at law, the same firm that had handled my husband's will. And the envelope had Daniel's name on it. My heart stuttered. I shouldn't have, but I reached for it just to see the date. Last week. Why would my late husband's lawyer be writing to my son? And not to me? Before I could think, Daniel's voice cut through the room. Mom, don't touch that. His tone, sharp, defensive, wasn't my son's anymore. It was someone else's. Someone hiding something. I froze, the letter still in my hand. And in that moment I realized, losing my home wasn't the real disaster. It was just the beginning. Tell me in the comments where you're listening from. Daniel's words still echoed in my head, sharp and cold. Mom, don't touch that. It shouldn't have hurt so much, but it did. The way he said it, like I was some stranger rifling through his things. I let go of the letter slowly, pretending I hadn't read a thing. Clara's heels clicked across the tile as she walked back in, her voice light and controlled. Is everything all right? Daniel didn't look at me. Yeah, Mom was just, looking at the mail. Her eyes flicked to the envelope, then back to me. That polite smile again. The one that never reached her eyes. Of course, she said softly. It's easy to get mixed up. You've had a rough night. Rough night. I wanted to laugh. My entire life had gone up in flames. I forced a smile, but inside something shifted. A small crack of doubt. That letter, Renshaw and Cole. Why would Daniel be hearing from our old lawyer? Clara led me upstairs to the guest room. Everything was spotless. White sheets, lavender-scented candles, not a thing out of place. But the space felt temporary, like it didn't belong to me. Or anyone. She set a folded blanket on the bed. I know it's been hard, she said in that careful tone people use when they're pretending to care. But we just need to keep things simple for now. Daniel's been under a lot of pressure lately. I looked at her. Pressure? From what? She hesitated. Oh, you know, finances, work. We're trying to keep everything balanced. Balanced. Another word that didn't fit. They had a house, 2 cars, and a vacation photo from Italy still framed on the dresser. Balanced wasn't the problem, they were fine. Still, I nodded because I was too tired to argue. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw fire, bright, merciless, swallowing everything. And underneath that memory, the question kept circling. Why would Daniel need a lawyer connected to my husband's will? The next morning, I came downstairs to find Clara already dressed, pouring coffee. She smiled, but her tone was brisk. Daniel left early. Big meeting. I'll be out most of the day, too. Do you mind if I do a bit of laundry? I asked. Of course, she said, then hesitated. Just, please don't go through the office. Daniel's got confidential files in there. I assured her I wouldn't, but her warning sat heavy in my chest. People who have nothing to hide don't draw boundaries that specific. By afternoon, I'd cleaned the kitchen just to keep my hands busy. The rhythm of it, washing, drying, folding, kept my mind from spiraling. Until I found the receipt. It was tucked under a stack of magazines on the counter. A printout from Crescent Title Agency. The date was 2 weeks before the fire. The total, $1,200. And at the bottom, under Client, it said Daniel H. Whitmore, transfer of property title. My property. My husband's house. I stared at that slip of paper so long the numbers started to blur. It didn't make sense. The deed had always been in my name. My husband made sure of that before he passed. When Daniel came home later that evening, I tried to sound calm. You've been busy lately? I said, forcing a smile. He nodded absently, scrolling through his phone. Work never stops. I noticed you've been talking with our old lawyer, Renshaw and Cole. His hand froze. Then he laughed too quickly. Oh, that? Just some estate stuff. Nothing big. Estate stuff, I repeated. For who? He shrugged, still not looking up. For you, Mom. I'm helping keep things organized. You know how confusing paperwork gets. A lie. I could hear it in the way his voice tightened. I wanted to press further, but Clara walked in right then, her perfume hitting the air like a warning. Dinner's ready, she said. We made enough for everyone. We sat around the table in silence. The only sounds were forks scraping against plates and the faint ticking of the clock. I could feel their unease like static under the surface. After dinner, Daniel went upstairs to make a work call. Clara stayed behind, her smile gone now. Margaret, she said quietly, I know things are hard right now. But Daniel's trying his best. Maybe don't question every little thing he does. It's not fair to him. Her voice was calm, almost kind, but the meaning was sharp. A warning wrapped in sugar. I met her eyes. I just want to understand what's happening, I said. She tilted her head. Then trust your son. He's doing what's best for everyone. Everyone, not you. When I went upstairs later, the guest room door was cracked. Down the hall, Daniel's office light was on. I heard the faint murmur of his voice. Curious, I took a step closer, just enough to catch a few words through the door. Yes, I know she's here. No, she hasn't seen the documents yet. We'll handle it before she does. My heart stopped. Before she does. I backed away, careful not to make a sound. Lying in bed that night, I stared at the ceiling, my pulse hammering. Something was wrong, very wrong. And whatever Daniel was handling, it had everything to do with me. The next morning, I decided to find out what he was hiding, even if it meant losing him for good. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Daniel's voice through the office door, those same words echoing like a bad dream. She hasn't seen the documents yet. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I couldn't just sit there pretending nothing was wrong. When Clara left for her yoga class and Daniel for work, I waited 15 minutes, heart pounding the whole time. Then I went into his office. It felt wrong, but I told myself I had the right to know. After all, whatever he was hiding, it had to do with me. His desk was immaculate, everything arranged too neatly. A single folder sat near his keyboard labeled Estate Final. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside were photocopies, deeds, letters, and one legal form stamped with the name Renshaw & Cole. The title across the top read, Transfer of Property Ownership. My breath caught. The property listed was my old house, the one that had burned down. And under previous owner, my name. Under current owner, Daniel H. Whitmore. I gripped the paper tighter. The date on the document was from a month before the fire. I felt dizzy, like the floor tilted beneath me. My son had transferred my property into his name, before it was destroyed. I searched the folder again. There was a printed email thread between Daniel and someone from the law firm. The subject line, Insurance Policy Coordination. The most recent message read, Once the paperwork clears, the payout will be directed to the Whitmore account as requested. The Whitmore account. His, not mine. A noise from outside jolted me. A car door slamming. I stuffed the folder back exactly where it had been and slipped out of the office just as Daniel's keys turned in the lock. He walked in, smiling faintly. You're up early. Sleep okay? I forced a nod. Fine. He poured himself coffee, casual, almost cheerful. I wanted to scream. I waited until he left again before calling Linda, an old friend from church, a retired paralegal who'd helped me with small legal issues after my husband passed. She'd always been sharp, practical, discreet. When she answered, I kept my voice low. Linda, I think something's wrong with my husband's estate paperwork. How wrong? She asked. Wrong enough that Daniel's name is on my house deed. It looks transferred. Before the fire. There was a pause on the line. Then her voice dropped. Send me whatever you can find. I'll check the property registry. Don't tell anyone yet. I thanked her and hung up, my pulse racing. That evening, Clara was extra sweet. Overly sweet. She asked if I was feeling settled. She even offered to help me buy new clothes to replace what I'd lost. Her kindness felt staged, rehearsed. Over dinner, Daniel mentioned that the insurance company was moving fast on the fire claim. "Once it's approved," he said, "we can sort everything out properly." The word stung. There was no we anymore. 2 days later, Linda called. Her voice was tense. "Margaret, I checked the records. The property deed was indeed changed. You're no longer listed as the owner." I closed my eyes. "Can that even happen without my consent?" "Not legally," she said. "But if someone forged your signature or claimed power of attorney, it might have slipped through before anyone noticed. Do you remember signing anything for Daniel recently?" "No." My voice cracked. "Never." "Then you need to get a certified copy of that deed," she said. "And don't confront him yet. Let me see what else I can find." That night, the air in the house felt heavy. Daniel laughed with Clara in the living room, their voices muffled but easy. It sounded like a life I didn't belong to. Later, when they went upstairs, I sat in the dark kitchen and looked around. The marble counters, the framed family photos, the smell of Clara's expensive candles, it all felt foreign. I whispered to myself, "What did you do, Daniel?" The next morning, I went downtown to the county clerk's office. The clerk, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes, looked through the database and printed something. "There you go," she said, sliding the document across the counter. It was the deed. And there it was, my husband's signature. Except it wasn't his. The letters were wrong, too smooth, too neat. My husband's hand had always trembled slightly after his surgery. Whoever signed this didn't know that. I left the office numb, gripping the paper like a lifeline. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. That evening, I called Daniel into the kitchen. My voice was steady, but inside, my heart was pounding. "I went to the records office today," I said. "I saw the deed." His expression changed instantly, eyes wide, mouth tight. "Mom, you shouldn't have done that." "Then tell me the truth," I said. "Did you forge your father's signature?" He looked away. "You're overreacting. Answer me." He sighed, rubbing his temples. "Fine, I handled the transfer. It was just to keep things secure." Clara said, "Clara?" I cut in. "She told you to take my home?" He hesitated. "You weren't managing things well, Mom. We were worried. I was protecting what's left." Protecting. That word again. I stared at him, my son, my last family, and felt something in me harden. "You stole from me." He shook his head. "You'll understand later." Then he walked out of the room, leaving me standing there with the forged deed in my hand. A few hours later, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You're looking in the wrong place. The fire wasn't an accident." I dropped the phone. My knees went weak, and for the first time since that night, I was truly afraid. The message wouldn't stop replaying in my mind. "You're looking in the wrong place. The fire wasn't an accident." I stared at my phone for what felt like hours, my hands trembling. The number was blocked. No name, no clue. Just that sentence, short, sharp, and poisonous. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound in the house made me flinch. The hum of the fridge, the creak of pipes, even the whisper of wind against the window. It all sounded like a threat. By morning, I'd convinced myself I needed answers, real ones. The first place I went wasn't Daniel's office or the lawyer's firm. It was the ruins of my old home. The charred shell still stood behind yellow caution tape, blackened beams jutting into the sky like bones. The smell of smoke was faint now, but it still clung to the dirt. I walked through the ashes slowly, careful not to step on anything sharp. The silence was heavy, broken only by the crunch of debris under my shoes. Then I saw it, something half buried near the back door. A small silver tin warped from heat. I bent down, brushing off ash. Inside were matches. Dozens of them. I froze. The fire had started in the living room. So why would matches be hidden by the back door? A chill crawled up my spine. I called Linda right away. "Someone's been here before," I told her. "Someone tried to make it look like an accident." Her voice was steady, but I could hear the unease beneath it. "Margaret, you need to take that to the authorities. I can put you in touch with a retired detective I know. His name's Harris. He's trustworthy." I hesitated. "I don't want Daniel to know." Then don't tell him, she said firmly. But you can't face this alone. Later that afternoon, I met Detective Harris at a small cafe on the edge of town. He looked about 60, with a calm, worn face and sharp gray eyes. The kind of man who noticed everything. I handed him the tin. This was near my back door, I said. And someone texted me saying the fire wasn't an accident. He studied it for a moment, then nodded. You did the right thing calling me. I'll have this analyzed. But if someone wanted to hide evidence, there's a reason. Do you have any enemies, Mrs. Whitmore? Enemies. The word made me laugh bitterly. I didn't think so. Until recently. When I told him about the forged deed, the insurance transfer, and Daniel's involvement, he didn't look surprised. Just tired. Greed makes people do unthinkable things, he said quietly. Especially family. That night, back at Daniel's house, things felt different. Clara barely looked at me, and Daniel seemed tense, snapping at her over nothing. I noticed a stack of unopened mail on the counter again. One envelope caught my eye, insurance correspondence addressed to Daniel. I forced myself to act casual. Has the insurance company called yet? Daniel didn't look up. They're processing it. For my house? He hesitated. Technically, yes, but the payout goes through me since the deed. Since you took it, I interrupted softly. He went quiet. Then he said, It's complicated, Mom. I'm trying to fix it. Fix it. That's what people say after they've already broken something. The next morning, Harris called. I had the residue tested, he said. There's accelerant mixed into the soil. Whoever set that fire used it intentionally. My heart sank. Do you know who? Not yet, he said. But I'll be pulling insurance records. If the payout was redirected, there'll be a paper trail. I thanked him, my voice barely a whisper. That evening, while Daniel was out, I found Clara in the kitchen, swirling wine in a glass. You seem quiet, she said. Still thinking about the fire? I watched her carefully. It's strange, I said. The investigator found traces of accelerant. She didn't blink. Accidents happen. Her calmness chilled me. Clara, did you know Daniel changed the deed? She smirked faintly. Of course. We discussed it. He wanted to make sure things were managed properly. You can't blame him for being responsible. Responsible? I whispered. You stole my home. She sighed, her tone dripping with pity. You really should rest, Margaret. You've been through a lot. Sometimes trauma makes people imagine things. That last line snapped something in me. I wanted to throw her glass across the room. But I didn't. I just stared at her, memorizing the smug tilt of her mouth. Later that night, as I packed my things quietly in the guest room, my phone buzzed again. Another text from the same block number. Ask Clara where she was the night of the fire. I froze. Every hair on my neck stood up. I walked to the window, peering out into the dark yard. The street was empty still. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching. Whoever had sent that message wasn't just trying to scare me. They wanted me to know something. And they were close enough to see everything. And for the first time, I wasn't sure who was more dangerous. Clara. Or whoever was helping me. That text haunted me all night. Ask Clara where she was the night of the fire. I couldn't stop replaying it, each word cutting deeper. Whoever sent it knew something that could destroy the fragile lie Daniel and Clara had built. By dawn, I'd made up my mind. I wasn't going to stay silent anymore. At breakfast, Clara floated around the kitchen as if nothing had happened, humming softly while slicing fruit. Daniel sat across from me, scrolling on his phone, eyes avoiding mine. I looked at her, my voice quiet but sharp. Where were you the night of the fire? The knife froze midair. Her smile didn't fade immediately. It just faltered slightly, before she set the blade down. Excuse me? You heard me, I said. Where were you? Daniel looked up, frowning. Mom, what's this about? I'm just asking a question, I said. It's strange how quickly the insurance company moved, how fast the deed transfer was processed. It's almost like someone was planning for it. Clara gave a small, tight laugh. That's ridiculous. You're implying I had something to do with... Did you? I interrupted. Her eyes hardened. I was at home. With Daniel. We were watching a movie. I turned to him. Is that true? Daniel hesitated, just long enough for me to see the truth flicker across his face. I stood, my chair scraping against the tile. I want you both to know Detective Harris is reopening the fire case. He found accelerant residue. He's tracing the insurance transfers. Daniel's face went pale. Clara, though, didn't even blink. She only smiled again, slow and deliberate. You're playing a dangerous game, Margaret. You really should be careful what you accuse people of without proof. Her calmness terrified me more than anger ever could. That afternoon, I met Harris at the station. He dug deeper into the insurance files and showed me something that made my stomach drop. The payout request had been digitally signed by me. Except I never signed it. The timestamp on the document matched the morning after the fire, when I'd been sitting in an emergency shelter with no access to my computer. He looked at me carefully. Who in your family might have had access to your personal information, your passwords, your ID scans? My answer came out hollow. Daniel and Clara. When I returned to the house, Daniel was waiting in the living room. He looked exhausted, guilt written all over his face. Mom, he said softly, I need to explain. Then do it, I whispered. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing. Clara said the lawyer told her the deed transfer was temporary. She said it would protect your assets until the fire claim cleared. I didn't question it. I just trusted her. And the forged signature? I asked. The insurance money in your account? He swallowed hard. She told me you'd agreed. That it was easier that way. When I saw the payout come through, I thought it was legitimate. I swear, Mom, I didn't know it was fraud. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. But the image of him avoiding my eyes, lying at that breakfast table, wouldn't leave me. Daniel, I said quietly, you let her convince you to take everything from me. He sat down heavily, face buried in his hands. I just wanted to make her happy. She said she'd leave if I didn't do something. There it was, the truth in all its ugliness. He wasn't cruel, just weak. Later that evening, while he was upstairs, I heard the faint vibration of a phone on the counter. Clara's. The screen lit up with a message preview before it disappeared. I caught 3 words before it locked again. Lawyer wants silence. My pulse spiked. I picked up the phone, hesitating only a moment before trying the code. Wrong. Again. Then I noticed her birth year engraved on a charm near her purse. I tried it, unlocked. My breath hitched. Dozens of messages scrolled up the screen, between Clara and someone saved simply as MR. The first message dated 3 months ago. If the wiring fails, insurance pays fast. She's too old to fight it. I felt sick. The next messages confirmed it all. Plans about the house, the paperwork, even timing the fire when they knew I'd be home but asleep. Clara wasn't just manipulative. She was dangerous. When I heard footsteps upstairs, I quickly snapped photos of every message. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. I placed it back exactly where I'd found it and hurried to my room. Minutes later, Clara appeared in the doorway. She leaned against the frame, her face unreadable. "You've been quiet tonight," she said softly. I forced a smile. "Just tired." Her gaze lingered on me for a long, uncomfortable moment. Then she said, "Good, you should rest. You'll need your strength." And with that, she turned and walked away. My heart pounded as I locked my door behind her. She knew. Somehow she knew. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the photos on my phone. The proof, the betrayal, the danger. And for the first time, I wondered how far Clara would go to keep her secret buried. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of wind against the window, it all sounded like Clara's footsteps coming closer. By morning, I'd made a decision. I couldn't stay silent anymore. Not when I had proof. Not when I finally knew what she'd done. I called Detective Harris as soon as the sun came up. My voice trembled as I told him about the messages, the phone, everything. He told me to meet him later that afternoon, to bring the screenshots and my statement. But before I could even leave the house, Clara made her move. Around 9, she knocked on my door, softly, almost sweetly. "Margaret, you up?" I forced my voice steady. "Yes." She stepped inside without waiting for permission. her perfect smile in place. Daniel mentioned you weren't feeling well. I brought tea. She set the tray down on the nightstand, steam curling up from the cup. Chamomile, my favorite. I stared at it, then at her. That's kind of you. Her eyes flicked briefly to my phone on the bed. Just a second, but I saw it. I reached for the cup, pretending to take a sip. You know, Clara, I've been thinking about the fire a lot lately. She froze mid-step. Oh? Yes, I said softly. And about people who benefit from tragedies. For the first time since the fire, I saw a crack in her calm facade. Just a flicker of fear before she hit it again. I don't know what you're implying, she said. But maybe you should rest. Grief can make us imagine things. I smiled thinly. You're right. It also makes people careless. Her lips tightened, but she said nothing. She just turned and walked out, closing the door gently behind her. As soon as she was gone, I poured the tea down the sink. I didn't trust her, not with anything, not even a drink. By noon, I was ready to leave for the station. I tucked my phone and the evidence into my purse and stepped outside. The air was cold and sharp, biting at my cheeks. But when I reached my car, my heart stopped. The tires were slashed. All 4 of them. I stood there in disbelief, the reality sinking in. This wasn't paranoia anymore. Clara wasn't just scheming, she was desperate. I went back inside, pretending everything was fine. I couldn't let her see me panic. Daniel was in the living room, working on his laptop. Hey, Mom, he said, glancing up. You okay? Fine, I lied. Just going to take a walk. Want me to come with? I shook my head quickly. No, I need some time alone. As soon as I was out of sight, I called Harris again and explained what happened. He didn't hesitate. Stay put, he said. Do not confront her. I'll come to you. The next hour felt like forever. I stayed in my room, watching through the curtains. Clara paced the garden on her phone, gesturing sharply as she spoke to someone. Her movements were anxious, jerky, like a cornered animal. When Harris finally arrived, she was the first to greet him. I could hear her voice from the hall, calm, practiced. Detective? What a surprise. Is everything all right? I stepped out, clutching my phone. I called him, Clara. Her head snapped toward me. Harris nodded. Mrs. Hall reported some new evidence regarding the fire. Her smile faltered. Evidence? Yes, I said. Messages between you and someone named MR, talking about the insurance, the wiring, everything. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Clara laughed softly. You really think a few fake texts will hold up in court? You're more naive than I thought. She turned to Harris, her tone shifting. Detective, I think Margaret needs help. She's been under so much stress, grieving, confused, maybe even paranoid. I felt the heat rise in my chest. Don't you dare twist this! But Harris didn't look at me. He was staring at Clara, calmly, assessing. We'll see what the forensic texts say, he said. I just need both of you to stay available for questioning. When he left, the silence between us was thick enough to choke on. Clara stepped closer, her voice low. You're making a terrible mistake. You think this will end the way you want it to? I held her gaze. I think it'll end with the truth. She smiled faintly. Then you'll be disappointed. That night, Daniel came to my room again. He looked pale, nervous. Clara's upset, he said quietly. She says you're accusing her of crimes now. Daniel, I whispered. Please listen to me. She forged my signature. She planned the fire. I have proof. He rubbed his face, sighing. Mom, you're tired. Clara showed me her phone. There's nothing there. You must have seen old messages or something fake. My stomach dropped. She deleted them, Daniel. I saw them before. He shook his head, already walking away. I can't do this. Not again. And in that moment, I realized the worst thing of all. Clara wasn't just destroying me financially. She was turning my own son against me, one careful lie at a time. I didn't think it was possible to feel this kind of loneliness, not under my own roof. Daniel barely spoke to me after that night. He walked past me like I was invisible, his loyalty tied in knots around Clara's fingers. Every attempt I made to explain only seemed to push him further away. Clara had poisoned everything between us, and she knew it. By the next morning, she acted as though nothing had happened. Her smile, her tone, even the way she offered me coffee, it all felt rehearsed. Too smooth, too controlled. But her eyes gave her away. Cold, watching, measuring. I had one advantage left, the photos I'd taken. But without the original messages on her phone, they were just screenshots. And now, with Daniel defending her at every turn, I knew I needed outside help. That afternoon, I met Detective Harris again. We sat in his car near the park to avoid being seen. I showed him everything. Every text, every timestamp, every discrepancy between the insurance records and the supposed repair invoices. He studied them quietly, his brow furrowed. "This is bigger than I thought," he said finally. "The messages mention someone named M.R. That's Marcus Reed, right? The claims adjuster who handled your payout?" "Yes," I said. "Do you think he's involved?" "Could be. Or she's blackmailing him. Either way, we're tracing the money. But I need you to be careful, Margaret. If she suspects you're helping us, she might get unpredictable." Unpredictable. The word lingered like smoke in my chest. When I came home, Clara's car wasn't in the driveway. Relief washed over me. I could finally breathe. But as soon as I walked inside, I noticed something was off. The drawers in my desk, where I'd kept the USB backup of the photos, were open. Empty. My throat went dry. I rushed to my purse. My spare phone, the one I used to record the conversations with Daniel, was gone too. She knew. She'd been one step ahead of me again. That night, Daniel came into my room holding the USB. "Mom," he said softly, "why are you doing this?" "Clara found this in your drawer. She says you've been spying on her." "She stole from me," I snapped. "She forged my name, Daniel. You think I imagined that too?" He looked torn. His voice trembled. "If you're wrong, you could ruin everything. She could press charges for defamation." I cut him off. "If I'm wrong, then why does she keep erasing her tracks?" He didn't answer. He just stared at me for a long time, then left without another word. Later that evening, I heard voices outside. Low, urgent. I crept to the window. Clara stood in the driveway, talking to a man I didn't recognize. Mid-40s, expensive coat, slick hair. He handed her an envelope. She counted through it quickly before slipping it into her bag. The man leaned in close, said something I couldn't hear, then drove off. My gut told me everything I needed to know. Marcus Reed. I grabbed my coat and phone and waited until Clara's car pulled out of the driveway. Then I followed her. The roads were quiet, slick with rain. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. I knew it was risky, but I needed to know where she was going. She drove across town, past the shopping district, into the industrial side where office buildings turned into warehouses. She finally parked behind a small brick office with a faded sign, Reed and Associates, Insurance Services. I stayed in my car, heart pounding. A few minutes later, the same man from before stepped outside. She joined him, glancing around before he unlocked the door and ushered her inside. My pulse hammered in my ears. Harris was right. They were in it together. I recorded everything from the car, the time, the address, the two of them entering. Proof, real proof. But just as I was about to leave, headlights flashed behind me. A car slowed, then stopped directly in my rearview mirror. My chest tightened. A figure stepped out, walking toward my car. I panicked, fumbling for the ignition, but before I could start it, the figure came into view. Daniel. He tapped on the window, his face pale under the streetlight. "Mom, what are you doing here?" I rolled the window down halfway, my voice shaking. "How did you find me?" "Clara's tracker," he said quietly. "It's on your car. She told me you were unstable, that you might hurt yourself." I stared at him, stunned. "She's tracking me?" He looked down, ashamed. "I didn't know until today. Mom, you need to go home. Please, you're making this worse." "Worse?" I whispered. "Daniel, she's meeting with the man who handled the insurance claim. They're working together." He shook his head, his eyes full of confusion and pity. "You're seeing what you want to see." And that's when I realized I wasn't just fighting Clara anymore. I was losing my son completely. As he reached into my car to take my phone, I clutched it tight, whispering, "Daniel, if you take that, you're helping her destroy me." He froze, torn. The rain began to pour harder, blurring the windshield, and through it, I saw the faint glow of a phone screen inside Reed's office. Someone was watching us from the window, and I couldn't tell if it was Clara or someone far worse. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The rain hammered on the roof like a drum, drowning out every sound except my own heartbeat. Daniel stood there in the downpour, face pale, torn between me and the glowing window behind him. "Daniel," I whispered, "get back in the car." He didn't move. He just looked over his shoulder toward the office where Clara and Marcus Reed were meeting. His lips parted, like maybe, just maybe, he believed me. But then the office door burst open. Clara stepped out first, holding her coat over her head. Marcus followed close behind, his voice sharp. "You said she'd sign the papers. Now the detective's involved. This wasn't the deal." I ducked lower in my seat. Daniel froze. He could hear them too. Clara hissed, "Keep your voice down. I'll handle her. Just get me the second payment before the week's over." The two of them hurried toward separate cars. Daniel turned back to me slowly, disbelief washing over his face. For the first time in weeks, I saw the curtain lift from his eyes. "Mom," he breathed. "You were telling the truth." I didn't answer. I couldn't. I was shaking too hard. He climbed into my car, drenched, heart racing. "We need to go. Now." As soon as we pulled away, Clara's headlights flashed in my mirror. She'd noticed us. She followed. The rain made the road slick, the wipers barely keeping up. My hands gripped the wheel as Daniel kept glancing behind us. "She's right on us," he muttered. "She's not stopping." Then suddenly, blue and red lights cut through the storm. A patrol car blocked the road ahead, sirens wailing. I slammed on the brakes, skidding to a stop. Clara's car came to a halt behind us. Detective Harris stepped out, soaked but calm. He motioned for us to lower our windows. "Mrs. Hall, Daniel, step out of the vehicle, please." I could barely form words. "Detective, she's behind us." "Clara's," he raised a hand. "We know. We traced her messages to Reed. He's been under investigation for months." Daniel stared at him. "So it's real? Everything my mother said?" Harris nodded. "Your mother gave us enough to trigger a warrant. We've been tracking their communications since yesterday." He turned toward Clara's car. Another officer opened her door, and for the first time, I saw her mask slip completely. Her perfect calm vanished. She wasn't composed anymore. She was furious. She screamed as they pulled her out. "You think you can take everything from me? That house was mine too. He promised me everything." Her voice echoed through the rain as she kicked against the officers, mascara running down her face. And then, as they led her to the patrol car, she turned her head toward me. Her eyes locked on mine, cold, defiant. "You'll regret this, Margaret," she spat. "You don't even know the half of it." Those words stuck to me long after the sirens faded into the night. Later that week, after the arrests were made, Detective Harris called me into the station. He handed me a folder: financial records, insurance reports, Reed's statements. Clara had forged everything, even the witness affidavits that claimed I'd signed off willingly. But there was something else in that folder. A separate account under Daniel's name, opened just a few weeks before the fire. It contained nearly half the payout. I looked up slowly. "Detective, this was Clara's doing, right?" He hesitated. "We're not sure. Reed claims he transferred the funds at her direction, but she insists Daniel knew about it." My heart sank. No, he didn't know. He couldn't have. But doubt crept in, cold and quiet. That evening, I confronted him. The house felt heavy, silent except for the rain tapping at the windows again. "Daniel," I said. "The detective showed me the accounts. There's money in your name, from the fire claim." His expression was unreadable. "I didn't ask for it. She said it was for the house repairs. I didn't even touch it." "Then why didn't you tell me?" I whispered. He exhaled, shoulders slumping. "Because I didn't want to believe she used me. I thought if I ignored it, it would just go away." I wanted to forgive him. I really did. But part of me couldn't shake Clara's final words. You don't even know the half of it. Before bed, I sat by the window staring at the folder. Every lie, every forged document, every betrayal, laid out in black and white. It should have felt like closure. But it didn't, because one line buried at the bottom of the records caught my eye. A payment entry dated 2 weeks before the fire. The sender's name, Daniel Hall. The recipient, Marcus Reed. My breath caught. The numbers blurred as I stared at them, the realization sinking in. Maybe Clara hadn't planned it alone. Maybe she'd just finished what someone else had started. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Maybe it was the marble floors, or maybe it was the air between me and my son, so thick with silence that even breathing felt like betrayal. I sat at the plaintiff's table, my hands folded tightly in my lap, while Clara and her lawyer whispered across from me. Daniel sat behind her. He wouldn't meet my eyes. Detective Harris nodded at me from the back row, a quiet reassurance. This was it. Months of investigation, paperwork, sleepless nights, all leading to this. When the judge entered, everyone rose. My heart pounded so loudly it drowned out the clerk's voice. The proceedings moved in a blur: insurance fraud, forged signatures, wire transfers, arson. Every word felt like reopening an old wound. Clara's lawyer tried to spin a story about mental decline and misunderstood paperwork. But when the prosecution played the recorded messages, the ones between her and Marcus Reed, the entire courtroom fell silent. And then, the moment that broke me completely, Clara turned in her seat, looked right at me and said, "You think you're innocent? Ask your son where the first payment came from." All eyes shifted to Daniel. He froze. His lips parted, but no sound came out. The prosecutor placed a document on the table, the bank transfer. His name, his signature. The truth was right there, printed in black ink. I remember whispering, "Daniel, tell them it isn't true." But he didn't. He just lowered his head and whispered, "I'm sorry, Mom." I couldn't breathe. My own son. He hadn't meant for the fire, but he'd helped start everything that led to it. He'd trusted Clara's lies, thinking it was some kind of financial shortcut. And it spiraled into destruction. The judge's gavel echoed through the room like a thunderclap. Clara was sentenced: insurance fraud, obstruction, and conspiracy. Reed, too. Their names would be tied to scandal for years. Daniel was spared prison time but ordered to pay restitution. The judge called it a lesson in misplaced loyalty. I called it a heartbreak I'd carry forever. When the hearing ended, I walked out alone. Cameras flashed from the steps. Voices shouted questions I couldn't answer. I just kept walking. Outside, the winter air hit my face, sharp and clean. For the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. Not joy, just quiet. Later that week, Harris helped me recover what remained of the insurance payout. It wasn't much, but it was enough to rebuild, slowly, carefully. I bought a small house on the edge of town. Nothing grand, nothing fancy, just mine. The walls still smelled of fresh paint, and every nail, every floorboard, every window was a reminder. I survived. Sometimes Daniel visits. Not often. The first time he came, he just stood on the porch, eyes full of guilt. We didn't talk about the case. We didn't talk about Clara. We just sat in silence, the way people do when words aren't big enough. Before he left, he said quietly, "I wish I could take it back." I nodded. I know. That was enough for now. Clara, from what I hear, tried to appeal but failed. Her name's been wiped from most people's conversations, except the occasional gossip column. Funny how quickly the world forgets those who live by deceit. But I remember. I always will. It took me a long time to stop asking why she hated me so much. Why Daniel couldn't see through her lies. Why fate decided to test me like this. Now I've stopped searching for answers. Some betrayals never make sense. Some wounds never fully heal. But one morning, as I watched the sunrise from my porch, the sky streaked in gold and rose, I realized something. Clara may have burned my house, stolen my security, and turned my son against me. But she didn't destroy me. I rebuilt. Not the same life, but a new one, stronger, calmer. When I lock my door at night, it's not fear I feel anymore. It's certainty. The certainty that I'll never let anyone take my peace again. Sometimes when the light hits just right, I see the reflection of the fire in my memory, but it doesn't hurt like it used to. It reminds me of who I became through the ashes. The woman who learned that strength isn't loud. It's quiet, patient, unyielding. This was my story. Don't forget to subscribe.